Is it possible to podcast and travel the world? Well, if you're an author, you need to stay tuned. Welcome, everybody. I'm your host. This is Books Cafe, sponsored by free-ebooks.net. And we're excited to have you join us. We're going to be talking about podcasting. If you're an author and you're not podcasting, you're missing out on an incredible way for you to grow your audience. And we're going to be talking with an expert who's bringing this year's PodcastersKit 2021 to the public. And one of my courses is on it, and we're going to be talking about it. But before we do, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and never miss an exciting episode. All right. So with that, I'm going to bring our guest on. Oops. Dan Morris, how are you doing?
Dude, I feel like whenever I'm on this call with you, I feel like there's this
How do you feel, Dan? Tell us. How do you feel?
There's this man out there, and this man is living my dream. And every time I talk to this man, he's in a new place, and it's like he has the ultimate life. So whenever I'm on a call with Scott, I'm just thinking, how is this possible that I am talking to you again? Because everything I ever wanted in life that I thought I wanted, I'm not doing. I'm doing things that somehow I also wanted, but they don't mesh. Like I got married and then I got divorced. So now I'm stuck in Tennessee, which was never my goal. Because, you know, when you get divorced, you have to live a certain number of miles from your ex for a while because of the kids. So now I'm stuck.
All right. I'm glad you brought up the kids. Because I was going to tell you a secret is when you get divorced, if you don't have kids, you don't have to live near her.
Yeah.
So you have kids, that's a problem.
So I had 4 kids, you know, and they keep me bound. They're between 12 and 19.
Okay.
But then, even though my goal was to live like Scott Paton, that's my goal. Even though that was my goal, I married a woman with 7 kids. Oh. So now I have 11 kids. And I'm stuck in Tennessee, and I'm not doing what you're doing, which seems to me like my actual goal.
Interesting. Well, it's fascinating you bring that up, the divorce, the kids, and the wanting to travel. I'm divorced. I was divorced in 1996 or 7 or 8, somewhere in there. It's a bit fuzzy. And after about 5 years of divorce, she got very ill. I had 2 sons. So one came to live with me, and then the second one came to live with me. So I was very much like stuck where I was because, of course, I had 2 young boys, and she lives, 20 minutes away or whatever. So it's not like I could just take up and travel the world. And I made a commitment at that point to stay in the same place until my children were finished university or college or whatever it was they did. They had jobs and they were okay. And that was up until probably about 5 or 6 years ago. So I had this 10-year period where I was just like in one place. And now that I'm traveling, a lady that I was dating around that time, she messaged me about a year ago and said, congratulations. I'm just so happy you're living your dream and the life that you wanted. And I was like, thank you very much. But then I thought, like, how did she know this was my dream? Because I don't remember, memory is so selective, right? I don't remember ever saying anything to her. So I emailed her back and I said, like, why do you think thank you. Why do you think I'm living my dream? And she says, when we were together, it's all you talked about.
Interesting.
Yeah. And of course, since I'm talking about it, I probably wasn't listening. And so one of the things that I've learned in life is we have seasons. And I had a season that I absolutely loved where my sons were teenagers turning into men and then getting established on their own. And it was a wonderful time of life. Sometimes it wasn't. Like the divorce was awful, and the 3 or 4 years after the divorce were hell. But then finally things kind of settled down, and we got on with our lives. And then now I'm living this part. And I think that one of the things that I think, like I just said this to a friend of mine the other day, we live in a McDonald's society, like this fast, instant gratification. And we've forgotten that, you plant seeds in the spring and you tend them in the summer and you harvest them in the fall. And I would suggest that you're in the spring and summer time of this part of your life. And when your kids in 7 or 8 or 9 years are good and they're on their own and everything else, you'll do what I did, which was think, oh my God, I'm an empty nester. Everybody's healthy. There's no catastrophes that I've got to fix. And I can go do whatever I want. And I want to say too, we talked before we went on the air about your mom and stuff. And my dad was very, very ill and passed away about 7 or 8 years ago. I'd have to count on my fingers. And the last 2 years, I was going from just outside Vancouver to Vancouver Island every weekend. I'd leave Friday, I'd come back on Monday and spend time with them and make sure everything was okay. And then when he passed away, I did the same thing just to make sure my mom was okay. And so, we have these things that, because we're responsible, caring people, you do, right? Like, I mean, you could leave if you really wanted to, like there's no bars, but you wouldn't see your kids. And that to me would be so painful. Right?
Yeah. I clamor for every minute I can get with them at the moment.
Exactly. That's the way I was in the early part of my no longer being married situation. It was like, oh no, if you want to go do something, just let me know. I'll pick up the boys. I don't care. Drop everything.
I say that all the time.
Yeah. And that's what I love to do. So we have these times. The problem is just being patient. And because I can bet that, in 10 years, you're going to be doing whatever I'm going to be going, oh my gosh, I wish I could do that. That's really cool. Right.
So ever since I've known you, I think you're in a different country pretty much every time I talk to you. You were stuck in Colombia for a while.
Yeah. Last year, 10 months in Colombia.
And then I saw that you were in Canada for a bit this year. And I think you might have made it to the United States for a bit this year.
I did. I was in Hawaii for a month. And I'm trying to remember if I spent any time in Florida or somewhere else. I don't think I did. I think I flew to, where did I, I don't know. I went to, oh man, I would have to look up my calendar to know where I'm in Ecuador now. And I'm going to be here for the next another month. This is my first month. I'll be here another month. And then I'm going to come back in December because
so how do you finance this type of lifestyle?
Well, that's what my course in PodcastersKit is all about, and you really have to sit down and decide what you want. And you said something a little bit earlier. I want to go back to that because it does tie into this question. Is what I've discovered recently is, did you ever see The Secret?
Yeah, I saw The Secret. My mom's a big fan of The Secret.
Right. So The Secret, if the secret, according to Scott, this is what I think The Secret says, is sit in a corner, cross your arms, close your eyes, hum, and think about a pile of gold and it'll show up in front of you. And of course, that's highly unlikely. But having said that, what's my experience, and maybe I'm just at a lower level of spirituality, maybe the Dalai Lama does that every day. I don't know. But recently what's happened with me is I've said, I've just sort of like sat down and said like, what do I really want to do? And it happens, right? Like it doesn't necessarily happen that second, but then when I look back a couple of weeks later, like, oh, well, that thing I really wanted to have done, like it happened. But it didn't happen because I worked 40 hours of work, a week, and I was sweating and I was like just driving it to happen. It just like it was kind of like, I wish it would be sunny and the clouds parted sort of thing. Right. And I think that's a big part of, and I think part of it is when you know what you want, you see the opportunities to do what you want. When you don't know what you want, then the opportunities are still there, but you don't recognize them, and so you don't end up doing it.
Yeah.
And for me, the way that the first part of the way I travel is I decide, like, do I want to go to South America? Do I want to go to Europe? Do I want to go to Africa? Where do I want to go? And then if it doesn't happen, then I think, well, there's a reason that, God doesn't want me to go there just yet. I'm not done here or whatever. Right. So I never really feel frustrated about things not happening. Like, because last year I wanted to go to Africa, and I got to Colombia, they closed the borders and there's no traveling anywhere. So, I mean, you could go, you gnash your teeth and be upset, or you could just say, well, it's not now, right? Maybe there's a lion waiting for me in Africa last year and he's gone this year. Who knows? So, but just the last little while, it's been kind of like, I really want to go to South America. This is what I want to see. And then opportunities appear. And when I started traveling, I really just knew about like Airbnb and hotels. And I met a couple in Panama City, and they told me they were leaving the next day to go to Bali. Well, look on a map. Why would you go from Panama City to Bali? And I said to them, so you're going to like fly to LA and then from LA to Japan, and then from Japan to Bali? Like, that's insane. And they said, actually, that's pretty close to our flight path. And so you're basically going 3/4 of the way around the world to go halfway around the world, because nobody, from Panama to Bali. And I said, well, like, why are you doing that? Because in my mind, I'm thinking I'm going to go to Panama, and then I'm going to go to Costa Rica, and then I'm going to go to Belize, and these are little short, 1 or 2 hour hops, right? Not going halfway around the world in one shot. And they said, hey, we've got 6 weeks for free in a luxury house on the beach in Bali. And I said, wow, how did you get that? Because now I'm thinking, I would do that flight.
Yeah.
Sign me up. And they said, well, we use this site called Trusted House Sitters. And we just sign up. So I signed up. I'm all excited because now I'm thinking, oh, I could go to all these exotic places and not pay accommodation. Like, so that's awesome. So I sent 30 applications that night, and I got one reply, which was thank you, but no. And I did not understand why all of them ignored me. And it's really obvious now.
Yeah. I could probably tell you why.
And it's in my course. So I'm not going to tell you, right? I mean, I'll tell you, Dan, but I'm not going to tell you, the audience, because we want you
Nice.
we want you to get Podcasters Kit. I'm going to bring it up right now. I'm going to just share my screen, and we'll talk a little bit about Podcasters Kit, because it's got, and the reason for this course, everybody, is Dan. Because Dan and I were talking, and he says, you know what, if you got a course, Scott, we want to put it into Podcasters Kit. I said, okay. I said, I want to do something. Actually, I think it was your idea. Let's do a new course, right? If you've got a new course. So I thought, yeah, I'll put together a new course. And then I had 2 topics, and I asked Dan, like, I had 2 titles and 2 different topics. Like, they were totally different courses. Which one do you want? And he was like, traveling the world while podcasting, Scott, duh.
Yeah.
So that's the one I made. And so this is the Podcasters Kit. It comes out once a year, and it's only, where's the day? Oh yeah, 2 days, 8 hours, 40 minutes, and 45 seconds left. And it's $47. And I mean, how many people have contributed?
There's 41 contributors this year to the kit. When I put it together, my goal, I actually, I spent more time than I usually do on this part. I broke down podcasting on paper into all its parts. And then I wanted to get a course for each part. So, I was thinking, okay, there needs to be something about like how to choose a mic, how to get it started, how to host, and then there needs to be something about software, and there needs to be something about editing and voice quality and monetization and growing your show, and then there needs to be resources like physical assets that you could hold, like if you have a guest on your show, you need to have some sort of a form that they sign that says, I'm giving you the rights to use my name. So I needed those forms. So that was my goal, was to find everybody that taught something specific, so that when you're done, you basically had the A to Z of podcasting.
Right.
And you were important to that, to me, because not only because you lived the dream, but because you're not like a lot of the entrepreneurs that I deal with on a regular basis, who a lot of them will just have a regular job and their online stuff is the side gig. And then others will have a website, and every day they're producing blog posts and they're getting sponsored posts where companies are paying them to take a picture of their cake recipe, those kinds of things. Your lifestyle is different, and you've been podcasting. And I was thinking, like, that seems to be a really valuable tool. How do I accomplish that particular lifestyle? Now, at the same time, this summer we went to my wife's family reunion, and then on the way back, I visited with some of my high school friends. On the way back from Minnesota, we stopped and stayed at their house like a night each. And I found it interesting that all of them had kind of an idea of what their future looked like already. Like one said, we're going to live here in Iowa for a little while, but then, probably in the next 10 years, we're going to move back to Omaha to be close to my parents because they'll be getting older. So we're probably going to move there. And they all had that kind of a statement that to me seemed almost like resignation of adventure.
It doesn't sound too exciting.
Yeah, like we're done with the exciting part of life. And I feel like I'm waiting to get to the exciting part of life.
You are.
I got kids.
You are.
The kids are excited. I mean, we've done traveling. We did workshops all over the world. Like, I love those things, but I don't want the quest for adventure to ever end.
Right.
So I wanted your product in here because it's that. It's like help us, like inspire us to have those adventures. I mean, I have an entire list of things like Iguazu Falls and those sand dunes on the northeast coast of Brazil. Like, all of these things I have to see before I die. That's like my goal. I got to see all these things.
I got to add them to my list.
But then how do you do that in today's day and age? It's not like you can just retire. Like, you still need money. So there's got to be a way to do it. And I know that you're doing it.
Thank you. Yeah, it's that's interesting. Yeah, it starts with deciding like what type of life you want, and then being open to things happening that allow you to be able to do it. And the flexibility is really important. Like when I left home, it's like I finally grew up and I could leave home, at 60 or 59 or whenever it was. But my goal was to go to Europe for a year, Africa for a year, Asia for a year, get to Sydney, Australia, look across the pond to Vancouver and decide if I wanted to go home or if I wanted to turn around and go back. And I made it to Europe and to Africa and the Middle East. And then things happened which brought me back, good things, that happened brought me back. And it was to Cancun once and to Las Vegas. And so that was 2 trips over the Atlantic in about 3 months. And after the second trip back, I said, I'm not doing that again. And things just at that point seemed to be chaotic in my business world, right? And so I thought, well, I'm just going to stay in Central and South America. And that's what I've been doing. My goal last year was to go down the west coast of South America and up the east coast. And I didn't do it. And I'm not gnashing my teeth over it. I'm thinking, well, maybe they'll open up and I can do it this year, or maybe I'll do it next year, or maybe I'll go to Africa and do it when I come back, or maybe I'll never do it, right? Like you can do anything you want. You just can't necessarily do everything you want, right? Like
Go.
my son is a jazz musician. He's very, very good. And he was excellent on the guitar. And then he discovered the saxophone. And he was doing both of them. And then I noticed one day he wasn't playing his guitar. He was just playing his sax. And I asked him about it. And he said, "Al, Dad, you get to a point where you really just have to focus on one instrument if you want to get to the level I want to get to, right?" And so he said, the guitars, I'll play it, for fun and stuff, but I'm not going to be practicing like I used to. And it's the same I think it's the same in all aspects of life, right? And to me, I break life down to my physical health, my mental health, my emotional health, my spiritual health, my financial health, right? And then I set goals in all those areas. And I guess I don't know where travel might be under emotional, or it might be, it could, I don't know where travel is. I give it its own separate little category. But every year in January, I write out my goals, what I want to do. I put it in the back of my calendar and I forget about it. And then when I comes back to next January, I open up, I review my goals. I check everything. I love to check things off. So I check up.
That is so strange, dude.
I check all the ones. Yeah, I did this. Yeah. And I do find that I do about 70% of my goals without ever realizing that I'm doing this list, right?
That's funny.
And of that 30%, there's usually 10 or 15. So half of it is usually like, today, a year older, a year wiser, I'm really glad I didn't do that.
Nice.
So, yeah. And so
you won't hear that in too many business courses, to write down your goals and then put them in the back of a book.
Yeah, and forget it.
Yeah, you don't hear that very often.
No, it's really, really funny. And the funny thing too is when I'm reading it, it's like, oh, I didn't realize I wrote that down I don't remember. I wrote that down as a goal. That's cool. I did it.
Yeah.
And our subconscious is really powerful. And I think we need to not tune into it, but just allow it to work with us, as opposed to oftentimes when you see people that are conflicted, or they're really angry or upset, or the drama in their life, then that's usually I say my subconscious is like a 4-year-old. And if things are yelling and screaming and having temper tantrums in my life, then my subconscious is not happy, and I need to work on that.
That's funny.
Yeah. But in today's world, with the technology that we have, and I think we've really seen it over the last year when, businesses had to close down and people started working from home, that there is more of that opportunity. And you know what? That is a total belief of Scott, because I thought, Matt, I wish I had traveled when I was 35. But when I was 35, it's 30 years ago, so 1990. And I'm working in a grocery store. I'm managing a grocery store, and I'm not able to go. I mean, even if I quit my job, like, what would I do when I travel, right? And yet I ran into someone a few weeks ago, and they were telling me about the travels that they were doing for like 10 years in the 1980s. So there's always opportunity to do what you want to do, as long as you're open to the opportunity coming, and you're not thinking, well, if I'm above being a dishwasher, or like whatever it happens to be, right? Maybe if you're a dishwasher on a billionaire's yacht, that might be pretty good, 6 months.
Yeah, or a semester at sea.
Or a semester at sea, right? Or teaching English, So I mean, there's always opportunities, and I feel like there are more opportunities now than there's ever been. And my advice when it comes to traveling the world is, is find something that you love to do. And the chances are, like, we're all, wedded to our phones and computers and stuff. So it's probably something you like doing on your computer, and then see what you can do to make a go of it. And it can be crazy things too. Like you could be podcasting about some video game that's, War of the War Worlds, or I don't know what World War. I don't know. Like there's
Dude, I got an example for you. There's a guy I met at Podcast Movement, the big podcasting conference, who last year at Podcast Movement had started a wrestling podcast, like Hulk Hogan style wrestling.
Yeah.
But the crazy thing is, he invented all of the characters. So his wrestling website is completely made up universe. All the different characters that he has that fights each other. He commentates the fights that they're not even real. He's like commentating these fights from people who don't exist. And so anyway, last year he had just started it, and now he's getting like 50,000 downloads an episode.
Awesome.
It's just crazy.
That is so cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so you can, so whatever you love to do, the beauty of the internet, podcasting, YouTube, that sort of stuff right now is whatever you love to do, no matter how small the niche, it's big.
There's plenty of people.
Worldwide is big. Like if you lived in Huntsville, Alabama, and you wanted to, have a local radio show on, fake wrestlers, there'd be like 4 people that might tune in. But in the world, there's tens and tens of thousands of people that will tune in, and then you can work on this. And I talk about this. So basically, in the course, I go through what is podcasting, how do you a little bit about how do you do it. Then I talk about my philosophy on traveling, how I traveled, and the big part of it is if you're like I've been on the road for it'll be 5 years in a couple months. And so I can tell you for a fact that if I was staying in resorts and 5-star hotels that whole time, it would drive me crazy. I would be sick of the food and everything else. I want to really travel and live in the communities of the cities, right? Like with the local people. And that's not 100% of the time. Like I love going up to Cancun and staying in a resort for a week, or if I'm traveling somewhere, like I'm going to be in Quito, which is the capital of Ecuador, for 2 days. Well, I'm going to stay in a hotel downtown so I can wander around downtown for my 2 days have a break and a holiday. That's great, right? But to be 3 weeks in a hotel in downtown Quito would be terrible. And so what I do is I try to find a place where I can stay for 3 to 6 weeks, so I get a feel for the area and the country and the people. And then move on. And what happens, of course, is you get favorites. Like Medellin, Colombia is my favorite. So I keep going. If I'm in the general vicinity, like South America, then I'm going to go to spend a couple or 3 weeks in Medellin and see my friends. And
do you watch Romancing the Stone while you're there?
No, but I love that movie.
Doesn't that take place there?
I think it takes place on the coast more than, I don't know. Now I'm going to have to go on Netflix and watch it, Dan.
I think it does, man. Or maybe it's the second one. Maybe it's the second one.
I'll watch both of them. I really enjoyed those movies. And maybe they were part of what inspired me to travel.
Maybe.
And then the last part is about like how do you make a living? Like what sort of things can you do? A lot of what I do is I have clients, they pay me every month and everything is fine. And then other opportunities open up. Like what I've really noticed is when you're giving and when you put yourself kind of out there and do stuff, then opportunities show up. Like there are things that I'm doing now that if you'd have said you'll be doing this, 7 years ago, I'd have said like, that's insane. There's no way. I don't have the knowledge. I don't have the network. I don't have anything that you need. And for years I've heard, people will interview successful, like multimillionaires, like, how did you become successful? And they'll say really bland things like, well, I was just like in the right place at the right time. And I knew about this and I knew about that. And I put them together and I worked hard. And 10 years later, I'm a multimillionaire. And I always thought that was BS, right? And a lot of what I've got going on right now is exactly that. Like I spent 10 years telling people to podcast and telling them I'll teach them, and nobody listened to me. And then all of a sudden, 2 or 3 people listened to me, and then they told their friends, and they told their friends, and now all of a sudden, a whole bunch of people, I'm producing their podcasts. And in the process of producing their podcast, I found out about other problems that they had. And I said to another friend of mine, well, these people have this problem. Like, can we help them? And they said, oh, yeah, sure. I know what to do. And then all of a sudden, another division, another company, like however you want to put it, pops
Yeah.
up. And and I'm not really spending a lot of time on that end of it. So that's good. So that's one of the things that I really want to encourage everybody is like, keep taking your steps and keep your eyes open. And if entrepreneurs solve problems, so what are the problems of your clients, or what are the problems of your market that you like? Like if you're, if you love wrestling, and oh my God, like that's just such a great idea. Make up all these wrestlers, give them all characters,
Yeah.
and then call their fights.
I don't know how you have the mental knowledge to do that, but yeah.
If you're a wrestling fan, it's not a problem.
Yeah. I guess you just envision it in your head, like just imagine what's happening, and I don't know.
You make some notes. You get the storyline of the match.
Yep.
You watch WWE or whatever other ones there are out there, and you get some ideas. Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah.
And then you remind me of one of the big things about podcasting. Everybody is it's a lot of stories, right? And so we've told some stories now, and I want to tell a story because you just reminded me of it. There was 2 old gentlemen in a hospital room. There was a curtain between them, and there was one window. It wasn't very big. And the guy who could not see out the window was, he's lonely, he's sick, he's not feeling very good. And he says to the guy by the window, he says, can you tell me what you see out the window? And so he says, oh, sure, I'll tell you. And so, it's a sunny day, and there's a park down, I can see the park, and there's kids playing. And he would tell all these stories about this park and the people going by and the cars driving and that sort of thing. And this went on for about 2 or 3 or 4 weeks. And then one night, the guy by the window starts choking. And the guy not by the window is like, should I say something or should I just keep quiet? And he decided to keep quiet. And the other fellow passed away. So they come in and they take him away, take the person that passed away. And he says to the nurse, can I have the window spot? And she says, yeah, sure. There's like nobody coming in for a little while, so go ahead. So they move him by the window, and he looks out the window and he sees a red brick wall.
Nice. He let that poor guy die.
Yeah.
So sad.
That is really, yeah, it is sad. And but it's also like what you make of it, right? Like he was telling the stories and making the life so good for that other guy who didn't appreciate or understand. But your fella's he's doing the same thing the guy by the window is doing, right? He's telling these stories to 50,000 people that are just like hanging on every word, right?
Yeah.
He probably like, I can't believe Macho Man like did that to Miss Elizabeth. Like, oh, that's awful.
The good old days, man.
The good old days, yeah.
Macho
Man.
I watched a documentary about him and how he died. That was too bad.
There's so many sad stories with those wrestlers.
Yeah.
But
anyway, getting back to the podcasting.
I feel like you're the host, Dan, today. This is just really awesome. It's like you're the host. I get to be the guest. So I wanted to bring up, when you buy the podcast kit, in my case, this is basically what you're going to be getting. It's a video of me explaining what podcasting is, where to host your podcast. We've got some options for you, and how to maximize your podcast. And this is probably one of the most important videos in my course, or lessons in my course, because remember I was talking about opportunities open up. Well, when you podcast for somebody, or if you're producing podcasts for someone, there are so many upsells. Like, in the internet marketing world, we'll say, yeah, you buy this product for $7 and then we upsell you for 37, then we upsell you for 47, then we upsell you for 197.
Oh yeah.
Where you go, right? But wait, there's more. Buy this. Oh, you bought this. Well, before you can actually get it, we've got something else we want to sell you. And that really applies to podcasting. There are so many other little services that you can offer. And if you've got remote staff, virtual assistants helping you, then you can do it at a very reasonable rate. If you don't, contact me, because I have access to virtual assistants, and I'm have a team of 30 people over in the Philippines, and we'd be happy to help you. But maximizing your podcast is all about the other things that you can do with the content that you're creating. And then I talk about accommodation, hostel world. Actually, this is kind of funny because I knew, there's lots of hostels, and hostels today are not like hostels when I was a teenager.
Oh, they're not? I love hostels.
They are gorgeous. They are, you can network. The people are friendly. They're all, young and excited, except if I'm there, then they're old and excited. And, but I wasn't going to do this. And then one of my friends I was talking to, and he says, oh yeah, like hostels. I go to hostels all the time. They're great, whether I have a private room or I'm in the dorm. And so I went to Hostel World, and the picture that is part of this thumbnail is a place on the Caribbean coast of Colombia in Santa Marta. And I stayed there. So I thought, well, there's a sign, right? Like nice. They're showing the place I stayed at, and it's a hostel. I didn't know. I booked it through booking.com, which is, I think, the next one here that we talk about. So that's, and one of the things is there's 1,000 websites on any topic, right? So, and there's hundreds of different places you can go book. I just showed you the ones that I use. And I think you pick one and you get really good at using it. Then you understand its quirks and how, all the little ins and outs, and then you can use it really efficiently and effectively. So if you're already using hotel.com or Dan's hotels for cheap.com, go right ahead. But if you're just wondering, what to do when you're traveling, this is the one I use. And then Airbnb. I love Airbnb because you have the option of places that are more like apartments or homes.
Yeah, that's my favorite.
Or staying in homes, right? It can be really fun. And then the two secret ones, you can travel a long time when you're not spending $2,000 on accommodation every month. And so these are two ways that you can travel and also contribute. Like, I really feel when you go places, you should, make it a little bit better than when you left, or help out people and that sort of stuff, volunteer. And they're both along those lines where you can give back as much as you get. And yeah, it's just great. I don't want to give it away. And then how do you find flights? This is an easy one. It's just how I use Google Flights. There's Skyscanner. There's lots of different things people use. And I've just found, pick one, get really good at it. Like, I had a friend who wants to come to Ecuador at Christmas. Oh, not Christmas, like in December. And he says, I looked at the flight, Scott, they're $1,000. And I said, yeah, like, you're a rookie. and I went on Google Flights and I've sent him a bunch of flights, and I said, okay, it's $500. Wow. Right. Well, it's because he just looked where he lives to where I am. And I said, no, I know there are cheap flights from where you live to like Miami. And I know there are cheap flights from Miami to here. And I know there are cheap flights from here to here. So you have to buy 3 sets of tickets, and maybe one night's accommodation, but you'll get here, right? A lot cheaper. And then if you're going to do any sort of online work, you got to use something like Speed Test to find out how fast your Wi-Fi is, right? Because wherever I am, before I go, I have go to Speed Test, please, then send me a screenshot so I know what your speed is like. And if it's 3 megs up and 2 megs down, then it's like, I'm sorry, I can't go there.
Yeah. Ours is 200. I just checked it today.
Wow, the first time I experienced 200 up and down was in Sofia, I think it's in Bulgaria.
It is. I've been there.
And I was uploading a video. So I'd done a bunch of editing. I had like 4 or 5 videos to edit. And so I drag the video over to YouTube, drop it, and then I look away, and then I look back and it's uploaded.
Oh yeah, that's crazy.
No way. Right. So then I did my second one, and I drag it, and I am watching like a hawk, right? And the thing just went zip. I was like, oh, love Eastern Europe.
The future has arrived.
Oh my goodness. And in Vancouver, Canada, you think you can get anywhere near that? Like, no. Like, it just, the first world sometimes, well,
Yeah.
you're in the States, but so you're first world too. But so then the next one is on producing podcasts, because that's what I spend most of my time doing, is doing the actual production. So I tell you how I deal with my clients and what sort of things we do to make it a nice, smooth experience. And then we have profitable podcasts. So it's Dan, you're the type of entrepreneur who I never want to have clients. You told me that before we started. And I'm the type of entrepreneur that I have to have clients. I've tried not to have clients, just doesn't work for me, right? So what are some of the ways, if you're like Dan, that you can make money with your podcasts, right? So, I talk a little bit about how you can use affiliate products, how you can make your own products, how you can do sponsorships. You could be a coach if you're a fitness coach, or you could be a life coach, or you could be any type of coach. And then consulting, which is a little bit different, and book sales, because, we're sponsored by free-ebooks.net. And it's kind of a good idea to talk about books because, hey, and one of the reasons, I know I'm not letting you in, and I'm going to let you in a second, but one of the most amazing book stories I have that I know of has to do with podcasts. And it's a Canadian author, and he wrote a book. He's a humor author, like he writes comedy or funny stories, funny novels. And he went to about 10 publishers, and they all said no. And he was like, and he was ready to quit. And he said, I really love this book. I'm going to read each chapter as an episode in a podcast. I'm just going to make a podcast, and then I'll continue doing whatever other things I'm doing, but that's what I've decided to do. And so he would release every week a chapter of his podcast, and he grew this audience, and they continued to, that was so funny, and this was great, and I can't wait to get the next chapter, and on, right? And he had like 20, 30,000 downloads of each episode by the time he was finished. And so he went back to the publishing houses, and he said, look, these people love my book. Why don't you love my book? So they said, okay, fine, we'll publish it. And so then he started writing his next book, and he was going to do the same thing. And the publisher said, no, you can't give away your book. And he said, hey, my audience is loyal. They're rabid fans. They're sharing. Yeah, I can't abandon them. And the publisher said, okay, fine. You can podcast as you write, but the last chapter you cannot post until after the book is published. Fair enough, he says. So he's done that with like 5. I think he did it with 5 books, and he's got a new book out. And he's actually going to be on this show a week, next Wednesday, actually. And Terry Fallis is his name. And he said that my last book, I'm not doing that because I'm making an audiobook, and I'm going to sell an audiobook.
Nice.
Yeah. So it was really.
I should get him in next year's PodcastersKit.
Yeah. Okay. I'll mention it to him, and I'll connect you to.
Yeah.
He may or may. I mean, he's like really an author who. He's an author who podcasts, right?
Yeah.
He's not a podcaster who writes books, but he would probably be tickled pink to tell his story. And I could even. I mean, I don't know if he makes courses or does this sort of stuff, but I do, so I can help him with that. So we can work together. That would be great. So that's that. And now I have a bonus I want to add, and I just forgot what it is right now. But when I finished, I thought, it would be really helpful if they knew this. So it'll come to me, and I'm going to put a bonus in.
That's good. Well, I'm excited about the whole thing. It ends Saturday night. So this is pretty much your last couple of days to get a shot at it.
That's right. And then it's not available. And these are all products that people sell day in, day out for probably a lot more than $47.
Oh yeah. There's $299 courses in there. I mean, it's pretty chock full. It's a good value every year.
Awesome. And the link is below. Now it's written out in gobbledygook, so don't click that. I mean, don't write it, type it out. That would be insane. In the comments, we've got it in the comments. It's a clickable link. You can go to the, as long as it's before the 9th of October, you can go and get it.
Nice.
So,
all right, man. Well,
wait, I'm going to put you on the spot.
Yeah.
When it comes to podcasting, wait for it. Do you have a tip for the audience?
When it comes to podcasting?
Yes. Or, you know what? Do you have a tip? If it's a life tip, if it's a blogging tip, if it's an author tip, I want to open it up. I don't want to put you in the box.
Well, podcasting is kind of a buzzword right now. And buzzwords have value in certain markets. For instance, journalists like buzzwords. You know, they like CNN.com likes to have buzzworthy content on the homepage. So being that it is kind of buzzworthy and not 100% mainstream yet, I think if you're in a niche, you should probably try to find some sort of association or group that represents the niche that you're in, like Association of Spanish Teachers or agricultural scientists or whatever it is that you're in, and send them a press release or a paragraph or some sort of update about your podcast. Because all of these organizations who have your audience, I mean, they're talking to your audience, the one that you want, they have newsletters and they have to fill their newsletters with content. So they need content. They need reasons. And the fact that a podcast is buzzworthy means it's likely to capture the attention of some sort of a journalist who's working on the association newsletter to put in a little blurb about, hey, there's a new podcast for you out there. You should go check it out, which would mean that you would get your podcast in front of the people it needs to be in front of anyway. So take the idea that it's buzzworthy and use that to your benefit.
Beautiful, Dan. I love it. And as you were talking, I realized that there was another way that you can use podcasting to make money that I didn't talk about.
Nice.
So I have two bonuses. If I remember what the first one is, I'll do it, but I will definitely do the second one because I wrote it in my book. And I have a good memory, but a paper memory is far more permanent.
Yes, it is. All right.
All right. So thank you very much for joining us, Dan. I know this is a busy week for you with the Podcasters Kit coming out and everything you've got to do, and I appreciate you spending time with our audience. And our audience, I appreciate you too. Head over to free-ebooks.net. You can get 5 free ebooks every month for life. And if you want to join our VIP program and support the site, we appreciate it. But we've got a lot of books there for you, and they're free. And don't forget to head over to Podcasters Kit. There's the link again. Oh, but it's in the comments. And check it out, buy it, because it's huge value, and I know that you'll love it. So with that, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.